first time even being up there with him. I'm always behind the camera. I'm not an
You wouldn't have thought so.
You've seen her a couple of times, right? Because I always would introduce her.
Well, no, I might come up just, on the intro, but never just sit there, and that was my first time.
Well, I don't suppose you had any choice, really.
It was cool, though. I had a good time, but, I didn't know I could do it, because, like I said, I've always been shy,
It's ironic, because you departed the day before on Babylon, and the next day you sat at the table. That's the first time. Valentine sits with his lady, and
I never sit up
Daoud, and even Azazel. And all,
So it's your time too, you see. You can't be left out.
Yeah. When I did a reading, it was like, okay, just share what you have from your heart. And that's all I did. It was like everything was just from the heart.
That was what was needed on Sunday,
It blew him away, boy.
From the heart, yeah.
You know what, when people was like, one woman said, I ain't never heard you before. She said, I heard you on the radio when I came out. She said, I'm blown away. So she wasn't spooked-ified or nothing.
That, I think Sunday for that galaxy, because, is that on?
Yeah. So you're going to have to ask your question again in a bit, but carry on anyway about the galaxy.
No, because it's on.
You want to say?
Okay,
since you're going to...
No.
But anyway, going back to just to piggyback off the Crowley thing, a lot of Crowley stuff is confusing because Crowley was neurotic. He wrote a lot of that stuff in cryptic, basically almost in Masonic lure. The lure of his order, the OTO, and there's tons of that stuff bought. Now the Book of the Law,
Good book.
that's the one to study, because that's beyond Crowley. The Book of the Law is beyond Crowley. That was actually given by Awas. And the Holy Books of Thelema is books that was actually channeled by Awas. Inspired by Awas. But then Crowley's stuff, when he's writing a lot of stuff for the order, it's really stuff that you can't understand because the simple fact it's all cryptic within the OTO stuff. But it's ironic, they'll sell all that shit to the public and the OTO gets money from it. But but like I said, they were upset with Kenneth Grant because Kenneth Grant explained Crowley, especially in Magical Revival. He literally opened it up. And he became persona non grata. They really don't like the fact that he exposed a lot of the occult lure from the OTO and stuff like that. So he's the one, but like I said, but then again, what they did is they had several books out, but the Magical Revival is the foundation. So what they did is they put a lot of the books out in the 90s, but they put the Magical Revival out early, then they took it out of print. So if you don't get that one, but that's the one that now you can download off the internet.
We will do that.
Yeah, you can download off of the internet. The Magical Revival. And then there's Aleister Crowley, the Hidden God, where he just breaks down Crowley. And then there's one called Cults of the Shadow, where he basically, and they really hated him because of that, because he basically told them, all this shit is African. So he equated Crowley's stuff with African, which is neurotic not to say it's not, because the simple fact that I'm unbuttoning my pants on the camera and shit.
I hope that's
It's about getting all naked and shit on their ass.
We'll edit it, don't worry, we'll edit it.
It's all good. Hell, I spoke one time with my zipper unzipped, and I was right in front of the audience, and I'm like, y'all standing there for fucking an hour. Anybody can say, yo, man,
I would have told you. So my question is,
right.
Is Farrakhan into the sciences? Because he goes on as if he's not.
He's into the Elijah Muhammad's sciences, which is the rudiment. But the sister Ty Seeley, the one that used to go with Valentine, she said she went on a retreat with him in the 80s. This was long before he was known. She said either late, it was in the age, she said it was a retreat, and he was dropping all this metaphysical stuff. She said so, but you know, she said she later on either asked him, either asked him, and it's always this thing that the people ain't ready. This is the problem what I got with it though. If he was to drop all of that, why is it that from the mid-90s on into the 2000s, he went more and more into Christianity, and his entourage became more and more preachers. And in so many words, he distanced himself from the black conscious community, and he embraced the Negro preacher community. Now anybody know that's counterproductive. Because some people will make the argument that say, well, you know, if somehow we can embrace the preacher community, then maybe we can open this up a little more for the people. No, everybody does that goes down the wrong route. The Negro preacher, first of all, in order to really deal with this, two things have got to happen. The doctrine has to be challenged. And if you challenge the doctrine, it's not that they can't get the people to believe. The preacher can't make no money with the bullshit.
That was my next question.
You see what I'm saying? So ultimately, it's always a dead-end road. It's always a dead-end road. You see what I'm saying? But he embraced more and more the preacher. And then the funny part about it was what we found was going on. The more and more we got into the Afrocentric thing in the early 90s, the more and more his rhetoric or his talk became nations, the evil nations of the world, of Pharaoh and Egypt, that old biblical bullshit. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know that this goddamn man has to know better than this shit, because Elijah Muhammad didn't say that stuff. You see what I'm saying? And one of the keys here is, and I think this, Dr. Ben he was looking for somebody to give his library to.
Yeah, he gave it to the nation, didn't he?
He gave it to the Nation of Islam, which means you could have probably given it to a white organization that would have done better for you than to give it to the Nation of Islam. Because the Nation of Islam means they're going to put it on lockdown. Because one thing about Farrakhan and them, they're not a community-based organization. They might have people in the community, but when it comes to the upper echelon,
I agree.
when it comes to the upper echelon, you cannot go to Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, you understand what I'm saying, on a certain level, whereas it's going to be a black conscious movement where we're going to get the benefit of all that. So those books are gone forever. Now he said he was going to put them in a what you call it, in a library, but you know, in a library and open it up, he's not going to do none of that. They are estranged from the black community, other than selling the bean pies or doing whatever. You don't see them as a people that would be a part of what everybody else has got going on in the black, especially the black conscious community. They're more mixed up with the church now than they are the black conscious community.
Is he trying to, because they don't seem to spend a lot of time on Elijah Muhammad, and you do not see his works.
Listen.
You do not see his works.
Listen. Show you how things go spiritual, and I can always document it. I was in New York, met a woman from Jamaica named Shakura. Shakura was a part of the Ansar community. That's Dr. York's name. And she got out. Now, we had to go to Coney Island, and we was up in her apartment, and Elijah Muhammad came through. I used to communicate a lot with him in the 90s. And Elijah Muhammad came through. And he said, I'm concerned about Farrakhan. And this is what he said in 1994. He said, I'm concerned about Farrakhan. He said, because he is taking the people away from my teachings and bringing them more to Christianity. And that's exactly what he did. By 99, they were saying that some of the things that Elijah Muhammad was saying, some of the things they were saying about Elijah Muhammad was saying was, they said, well, when they were asked these questions about his teaching, they said, well, he didn't really mean that. He said he did these things just to make black people feel good. You see what I'm saying? So that's completely gone now. If you look at the 1985 Power Tour tape, and look at anything more than now, Elijah Muhammad teaching is completely wiped out. It's more about Jesus and them black handsome head preachers. And the funny part about this now, the people, when Farrakhan first, because you know you had the Nation of Islam, the old nation, and then Elijah Muhammad died in 75. Then the War of Deen came in and completely demolished it and started putting white people in it and went to more traditional Islam. So a lot of black people started going crazy. A lot of people in the nation psychologically went crazy. You got people that got on drugs and became drunks, and drunks to this day, because they couldn't take what Wallace did to the Nation of Islam. So Farrakhan decided he was going to start it up. So the first thing he did is he went to the black community, Haki Mata Booty, you know, the one that was the black classic. What's his name? What's his name?
Black Classic Press.
Not black, the other one. First World Press.
First World Press, yeah.
Went to Haki Mata Booty because they was all based in Chicago. So he went to the black conscious community and black revolutionary community that was left behind in the 70s. He went to them and said, look, I want to start the Nation of Islam back up and all this, will you support me? And there was a whole, they said it was a whole inner circle of the black community, black conscious community, that helped Farrakhan start the nation back up, which they started it back up again in 77. Then he said, years later, Farrakhan started eliminating these people. They can't even get a meeting with him. You see. So he became unapproachable. You see. He became unapproachable. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you want me to drop the real shit,
Please do.
so motherfuckers won't be confused.
Please do. We love labyrinth.
Now, you moved your angle. I mean, the camera will...
Get straight. Now, if you want me to drop the real shit, I'm going to drop the real shit because there's certain things you know when you become a public speaker and you start traveling around, and certain things you know. I was confused on a lot of things until I started speaking. You see what I'm saying? And I started meeting people in a certain circle. That's when your eyes come open. But what happened? And he's got a tape out. He said it's him and another brother, Jabril, was in a hotel room, and there was money on the bed, and they didn't take the money. Based on his actions later on, that nigga took the money on the bed. Farrakhan is probably, hands down, one of the most successful and the greatest government agents that ever lived in history. You see. And I'm telling you what I know.
I agree with that.
So you cross the water, a lot of time when you all get it over here, it's still a fantasy shit.
So this whole thing about him not being able to come travel here.
So far the
It's
plan.
just-
Let me break
Please
Let
do.
me break that shit down. You want to hear the truth? Let me break it down. You got to understand the policy. You got to understand what's going on. This is it. You got to take this thing back before World War II. Before World War II, the people who lined up with those scriptures in the Bible, in the book of Daniel and all these things, was the slaves in the diaspora. You see what I'm saying? All the stuff about the bondage and being in bondage for 400 years and all this kind of thing here. Now we know that the Jews are converts based on Moorish Spain. Alright? Now let me break this down to you. So they did the whole bit with World War II. We already know that now, that a lot of the heads of the Jewish state is the ones that helped finance Hitler and was down with Hitler. Even Hitler himself was half Jewish. So before World War II, we lined up with the scriptures. They lined up with the scriptures after World War II based on the Holocaust thing. Alright? So, what happened was, in order for them to be authenticated, one thing had to happen. It went down to two nations, African Americans and the African diaspora, who were the ones who went through the slavery and the ones who were suffering to this day, the real suffering, and a people who try to corner the market on suffering as a concept, you understand, as a political concept for political power. You see what I'm saying? World domination and mind control. You see what I'm saying? So the suffering for 6 years in the concentration camps, a little bit of skirmishes they had throughout Europe, was not the legitimate suffering on what this biblical proportion was talking about. We are those particular people. So in so many words, that's another form of stolen legacy. You're going to steal the legacy of a people that not only did go through slavery, but to this day, you see what I'm saying, are the people that's the downtrodden and the wretched of the earth. That's black people around the diaspora. And I don't give a fuck where you go on this planet. We are on the bottom. Marcus Garvey said that motherfucking shit 70 years ago. Everywhere I go, the black man's on the bottom. We don't have no state, but Israel, you understand what I'm saying, run shit. We don't even have goods and services in our own communities in America. It's owned by us. All that shit is Korean. And now the Mexicans is coming up and they getting the check cash in places. Some people 45 years ago, they didn't even have on shoes, on mortar, train. Now they're working in the check cashing places, treating us with a heavy hand. You see what I'm saying? Now, so the deal here is, here's the people that have to corner the market of suffering, but there's only one thing that they have to do. It never happened. It never happened to Malcolm X. It never happened to Muhammad Ali, Elijah Muhammad. It never happened to Noble Drew Ali. There's one thing they needed to do. They needed to have a black leader to go against the fake Jews to authenticate them as the suffering. You see, this is the mystery. This is the divine mystery. You got to understand this shit. Because we get into emotion, but we don't analyze. We are a non-analytical people. That's what fucks us up. Now you got to understand this psychological thing that goes on here. Before Farrakhan, they had no history, you understand what I'm saying, of a black people against Jews. You see what I'm saying? The Jews was the motherfuckers that exploited us. You see what I'm saying? After Farrakhan, the anti-Semitism in America goes along with Farrakhan. You understand what I'm saying? That is an invention by the Jews, and he got paid off for the Jews to say that. And as a result, because of that, we can't say anymore, can you document history where we were antagonistic against you? You can't say that no more, because Farrakhan brought that to the table. You see what I'm saying? Not only did he bring it to the table, Khaled finished it. Now, to show you what I'm talking about here. There was a St. Martin's Press was doing it. They did a book on Malcolm, and they came in and said, well, look, everything Malcolm said, he gives praises to Elijah Muhammad. Why don't we do a book on Elijah Muhammad? So they did 2 books on Elijah Muhammad. One in 97 and one in 99. First one is called Original Man, Elijah Muhammad, Original Man. The other one is called The Last Days of the Nation of Islam. And these were books on Elijah Muhammad. So when they asked the guy that did the actual book, you only need the title. One is called The Original Man, Life and Times of Elijah Muhammad. And the other one is called The Last Days of the Nation of Islam. When they asked the guy who did The Original Man, what was the difference between Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan? He said Elijah Muhammad never talked about the Jews. You see what I'm saying? He might have said all white folks was devils, but he never singled out no Jews. And he said that was the distinction. So by him singling out the Jews, and they only had to say it once, the gutter religion, and they've been using this shit ever. By him doing that, it legitimizes them to the rest of the world as an authentic people. So in so many words, he completed stealing the birthright from us. Because now we can't say, you understand what I'm saying? Before we never had a history of being antagonistic to the Jews and even uttering anything against them until Farrakhan made that a reality. And the only thing they had to do was to broadcast that all over the world. So him not being able to come here, you see what I'm saying, is a strategy move that was a part of the bargain to keep this misconception going. You understand what I'm saying? Even the book, the relationship between blacks and Jews, my point here is, why are you singling them out? And if you, he said, well, Malcolm was the first person to say something. No, Malcolm never said nothing publicly. And this is the point I'm trying to say. You get something else over the water. Let me explain something to you. And all they got to know is understand that we can do what we want, because black people and people in America, I don't know about over here, I can only speak, we only have a 3-year attention span. If I ask somebody what happened in 1995, right now they could go, they might say, I don't know. No, and what was 95? See, I can go, because I have a detailed memory. Hale-Bopp Comet, O.J. Simpson trial, Million Man March. So we can go on and on and on. Ask them what happened in 2005, they might go with blank. 2005 was one of the biggest tragedies for black people. Katrina. Right now, people can't line up dates and stuff, so they understand when something goes down, they understand that we'll look up and we won't know the inception of it. What happened with Farrakhan is this. Black America didn't know who Farrakhan was until ABC, NBC, CBS News gave it to us based on the gutter religion. We didn't know who Farrakhan was. He's an invention of the United States government, the Illuminati, and the Jews, and all of them. We had no idea who Farrakhan was. The Nation of Islam was going, he is already, look, he started up back in 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 80. From 77 to 84 is how many years?
12?
No, about 7 years. It had been in existence, the new Nation of Islam had been in existence for 7 years. It was the year 1984, and this is the beautiful part about it, how you got to understand mind control. You got to understand the system. They didn't even raise the Hemmitt remark up with Farrakhan until they had to have a reason to even mention his name. And this is the key. Now let me show you the science on this. Nobody knew who Farrakhan was. Jesse Jackson announces that he's running for president in 93, 83, 84. He goes into the primary, and somewhere during that summer, Farrakhan does the Hemmitt remark. Not the Hemmitt. That was Jesse Jackson. Farrakhan does the gutter religion remark. Thus, they have a reason to air him on public TV because Farrakhan was associated with Jesse Jackson in the Chicago politics. Then we get to know who Farrakhan is, and then this is another thing about it. It costs a minimum. It cost at that time, back in 1985, a minimum of $25,000 to rent out the Madison Square Garden. It's no, well, we'll pay you after it's over. We're not getting paid on the door. You got to rent out in advance, months in advance, maybe years in advance, maybe about a year in advance to get that venue, because you got to line it up with basketball shows and you see what I'm saying, and different arenas. Where did he get the money if he's an unknown group struggling? Where did he get the money to start renting out Madison Square Garden? And every place that he went was big venues. He started, how do you get the money? You don't have a hit record out. You don't have no promoters and producers. You can't sell enough bean pies, because the thing about in the newspapers, because at this particular time they're obscure. Nobody knows who they are. Even after the gutter religion remark, people didn't know who they were. How do you get money to start renting out the Madison Square Garden and all these other venues? That's a minimum of $25,000 and different things like that. You see what I'm saying? How do you get the money to do that? Now unless somebody's financing you. Here come the other part. This is what I realize about other speakers that's not a part of the government. Anybody that is not owned and operated by the government, you cannot get commercial air and national airtime. It's virtually impossible. It can't be done. It's controlled, and anybody that you ever see that's on national TV, they are put there, you understand what I'm saying, under the behest of the Illuminati United States government. They are allowed to be on there. I'm telling you what I know. We take things for granted. We just take anybody on the TV. You cannot get on national, commercial, and international airtime on the TV, not unless you are sanctioned. So my point here is, they brought him to us. He's an invention of them. He's been a government agent the whole time. You see what I'm saying? Next thing you know, he's on Meet the Press, 60 Minutes. Primetime Live. He's on every major network, being interviewed by the top people. You understand what I'm saying? It can't happen. They never interviewed Elijah Muhammad, and you never saw Elijah Muhammad on national shit where they got stuff. It never happened. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make here is, this man is brought to, oh no, shit. You get ready to have a stroke up in here.
Okay. Oh, you hit that here?
Yeah.
Oh,
You put that out, you might well just hit me in the head.
Okay, I'm cool.
You see?
One time. You
Don't worry about that.
Okay.
It's going to
No,
be heating it up in
I was
here.
gonna go to the bathroom. I don't want to go by the camera.
Oh, you're going by the camera? This is
Yeah.
oh.
I don't want to be all this movement.
The occupied,
Everybody's like.
So my point here is, they don't give you a biography. Now let me tell you what the reason why I say all this. We had phenomenal geniuses in the black community. Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, Leonard Jeffries, Tony Broder, Asa Hilliard. The list goes on and on and on, and you ain't never seen none of them on national TV. You see what I'm saying? Never seen them on national TV. That's when I knew, when I got in that inner circle of lecturers, and you would never see them. Ronald Reagan's son had a TV show in the early 90s. They took it off. They took it off because he was anti his father. So everything his father was against, he was for. Father was a staunch racist. And when he died, the son said that his father never got the concept of race and whatever this deal was. He never could deal with that. So he had a show in the 90s. They had to take him off in like 91, 1990 to 91. He had a show, and he was bringing on all kind of people. And they brought Francis Cress Wilson on his show. But other than that, no airtime whatsoever. It couldn't be done. You see what I'm saying? And if it wasn't for Wesley Snipes with the John Henry Clark or Proud and Mighty Walk, that wouldn't have done it. I got to give him credit. That's probably why he's sitting in jail now, because he did that. And a lot of people have made a lot of money and never did that. But then again, it's based on whether you're conscious or not. Because I remember he was always conscious. We knew that from back in the day. He did that one, and he did one on Dr. Ben.
Yeah, we're waiting for that.
He finished the one on Dr. Ben 6 years ago. He finished it in 2002, but they won't release it. He couldn't get the funding for that one. And now with this whole jail time thing, that's probably way on the back burner.
The Million Man March.
Farrakhan said on a lot of his tapes in the early 90s and the 80s that marching was a thing of the past. In so many words, it undermined. I don't give a fuck how niggas feel. You a dumbass, brain-dead nigga. Who gives a shit how you feel? Non-analytical, dumbass, brain-dead, stupid-ass nigga. See what I'm saying? So who gives a damn what it made niggas feel? You went out there and paid your goddamn money and you ain't seen no aspects of what happened with the Million Man March. He done put on 2 of them motherfuckers, and nothing came about it. But the key here is, if you got to understand something with a psychological profile on how people view you in the world. You marched in the 60s. Okay? And where did the march we put on in the 60s came from? Didn't I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King was written by the Jews? So seeing to me, if you in with the Jews, ultimately they got you back marching. Why? See, we don't understand concepts of progress. You marched in the 60s, and although that I Had a Dream speech was orchestrated by the Jews, you know, Dick Gregory talks about that. Nevertheless, it hadn't been done before, and it was positive because, hey, if it hadn't been done before and you did it, you see what I'm saying? Doesn't matter who orchestrated it, it still goes down in history as one of the greatest things ever. Now, that was 1963. They celebrated, 1963, they celebrated the 30-year anniversary of that in 1993. 30 years. 2 years later, you're going to have a fucking another march. You see, my concept here is, if you do something 30 years before, and you still doing the same thing 30 years later, it undermines what you did before, because it's almost like psychologically, you ain't progressed since 30 years before. And you give it, and you letting the world see this shit. See, certain things don't supposed to go down on the world sphere. You did some shit 30 years ago. It's just like right now, if you see the damn Jews in concentration camps in 2008, you would be like, what kind of assholes are you to get stuck in this bullshit twice? You know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What kind of that? So, what kind of people? You in the middle of the 90s. This is 1 year after the internet starts. So in all honesty, it's the first year of the internet. And you marching. And you turn around 10 years later and do the bitch again? You see? All these marches. So my point here was, what did it resolve? They made millions of dollars. And let me tell you something about that bastard in Chicago. I was riding around with Camelot. He had heard some stuff that I had said about Farrakhan. So he saw me on the side of the fucking street. I was catching the damn train. He pulled up in the pink convertible Rolls Royce. Powder blue convertible Rolls Royce. So we was riding around Atlanta. He said, I need to talk to you about Farrakhan. And he started going. He said, he stepped to me and told me I can't say the white man is the devil. He said, well, he said, then I said, well, we'll change that to the powers that be. He said, each time, it just got worse and worse. And we was talking, and he mentioned one thing to me. I said, well, damn, man, why is he still selling out? He's got millions. He said, no, brother. Multi-millions. That was in 98. He said, no, brother. Multi-millions. See what I'm saying? And you got niggas selling them hot-ass bean pies in a wool black suit and a bow tie out here on the fucking street. You talking about mind control for a multi-millionaire, probably a billionaire. My point here is that organizations, it's supposed to be a trickle-down theory. That means that organizations, and we ain't talking about sophisticated niggas like that, look. Organizations, you're supposed to see the fruit of the organization. They're supposed to have businesses. They're supposed to have businesses to the point whereas nobody would have to even sit out and sell some damn bean pies. Don't tell me we can't do it. Let me tell you something, man. They got a holy sanctified church in Atlanta. Ultimate business. These are holy sanctified people. They damn near wear pilgrim outfits. But they got the beautiful restaurant and it's been there for years. And had two, but it wasn't their fault that the neighborhood just got worse and a lot of people moved out, they closed down so much. They had two, but I think they might have three someplace else. And they got organizations. He opened up the restaurant in Chicago. It's closed down now. And he got multi-millions. You see what I'm saying? So then the next thing we know, they don't put you on the Wall Street Journal. You know, the Wall Street Journal puts you, they got this linear type drawing. They got these lines, look like the same engravings that you have on dollar bills, that you have on money. They put engravings. Farrakhan up on his shiny ass motherfucking head in February of 1997, he on the cover of Wall Street Journal. And they talk about him and the Jew guy, Edgar Brockman, over Seagram's Liquor, opening up a hotel together and all this kind of stuff. You see, my point here is your leaders will not be brought to you by anybody. If you see them on TV, that's a form of mind control. The red flag should go up. I'm telling you right now, with me, if you see me sitting up on Oprah, and that's mild, you see me sitting up on Oprah, y'all might as well start to crying and get out the damn hire a hitman or do what you got to do.
We'll get you Azariah.
If you ever see me up on any national TV show, now there was a sister. Now I'm on late nights, like 2 or 3 in the morning up in New York. But the sister, she been running me. She run Valentine's. She been running me since '95, and I told her not to do it. But the next week she put me on anyway. And it was 3 years later. People like, I catch you on the radio show, the TV show. I said, TV show? They said, yeah, we've been seeing you for about 3-4 years now. But that wasn't my doing. You see what I'm saying? That's my doing. I mean, I just popped up on YouTube and all that. But if it wasn't to be, the spirits would handle that. So my point here is, national TV or international TV, if you ever see me on there other than these tapes and different stuff that was already made, but it wasn't made for TV, and somebody just decided to do that, shut up. Shut up. That's just the way it is,
A Million Woman March?
Huh?
A Million Woman
Well,
March?
basically what you had there, you just had some sisters who were just getting in it. Once the trend started, they got into the vein of this thing and all. They did have Winnie Mandela come through. And hell, she was ousted by Mandela. You see what I'm saying? Who was another nigga we knew nothing about until the government, till the white folks gave him to us.
Yeah.
We didn't bit more no damn Mandela and a head on the back of your ass.
He's having a birthday party here.
Right here, and a statue and all that. Come on, man.
They've done a statue.
You see.
We have
go ahead.
We have a big supermarket called Tesco, and they're having in Hackney, and they want to build this huge superstore, but it's called Aurora. A-U-O-R.
Aurora, if you look at the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it means Osiris.
Osiris?
Yes, it's in there. Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Osiris.
Okay.
Around blackness.
I'll have to look at mine, because the main meanings that you keep getting is the new dawn. That's the main ones. But they want to build this great big superstore with other things on it, but the shape of it as well is quite interesting. I just wanted to know what you knew about Aurora, but now that you've told me...
Yeah, more Aurora means because there's a black coffee called... There was a coffee shop in Atlanta, no, in America, called Aurora Coffee. And we looked it up one time. That's me and C. Freeman L, because he had the Metaphysical Dictionary, and I looked it up and it said Aurora, and it had Osiris up in there. Blackness. So it's another name for melanin too. You see, yeah. There's actually an alchemy book by Marie-Louise von Franz. An alchemy book by her, and she has a whole section called the Aurora section. And in that section is dealing with blackness. So in her section it's called Aurora, which is the earlier word for it. In modern alchemy it's called Negrito, or prima materia. You see, they got older words. Aurora was one of the older words for Negrito. Melanosis was one of the words before it was Aurora, but they took those out of print. There's one book called Dictionary of Alchemy. I can't think of that, Mark something. And in that book, he prints all of the older stuff because he's a Jungian fella, and Jung, when he was deep drafting his stuff, he used a lot of stuff in his works, in his collective works, which was words that were taken out of circulation. So right now they'll come and agree not to use certain words. Jung is real good because a lot of those words appear in his works. You see what I'm saying? So he got stuff like called a Mistrum Canonandrum, a book, and Psychology of Alchemy, and Alchemical Studies. In all those books, they have older words like the word nigrum, nigrus, nigra, and stuff, you see, which is triple blackness. It's just tons of stuff up in there.
But
like
does that relate to the Nagas?
Yeah, the Nagas, yeah.
The
All
Nagas.
the Nagas and all that stuff. The serpent people and all of that. So, yes, that's what that relates to, yeah. You see, yeah.
Did the Million Man March produce more religious people?
No religious people went to it. The problem is that it didn't change religious people. You see what I'm saying? It didn't change religious people. What happened was, they got scared because the conscious rap did make a real mark with the Public Enemies, KRS-One, X-Clan. And if you notice, about 1991, all of those groups had done conscious albums. Heavy D and the Boys did one. Even the guy Kumo D came back with one. Everybody was doing them. By 1991, everybody had gotten into the flavor of it, and they had to break that. You know, they had to break that. And so what happened was, is by 94, they had the youth 18 and under, 18 and above was conscious. So they had to go to work. And so they had to go to work, and that's where Kurt Franklin and other people started coming out. And they even recruited Mace to try. The Mace was going to be the one that was supposed to bring this conscious rap to a certain level. And it didn't happen. He quit, and now he's a preacher. Looking like a damn fool. But then the Kanye West happened, but see, it can't happen in a format that wasn't started that way. It wasn't started under Jesus, so at best, he will have one song on there that people will hear that's Jesus, but he's just a black man that's a Christian. It's not considered Christian music. You see what I'm saying? So they never was able to break that in the rap industry. But there was, like I said, basically what they had to do to make church more appealing is they understood that every modern black person in the diaspora is just money struck. It's all about prosperity. And so as a result, what they had to do was how they was able to trap millions of people, and they're doing it on the continent now, is the prosperity theology. We had all the other forms of theology in America. What we didn't have was the prosperity theology. So when that hit in the mid to late 90s and on into the 2000s, that's what put a lot of people still on lockdown. You see what I'm saying, on that particular level. You see. So that was appealing up to a certain level, which here goes again. The only people got rich was the noble-ass preachers. So that's how that whole thing went down. Yeah. Any more questions on this?
Yeah. The whole, as a sister made reference to the Aurora complex that they're planning to build, and you tie that in with the soil. And as I've mentioned before to yourself and a few others, just with this whole new the Ham connections and stuff like that. And over the weekend we began into the Camelot, mysteries. For those who's not seen the lectures or not, been tapped into that yet, I just want you to give us a kind of brief overview of the whole Camelot, the Knights, the King Arthur's, legacy, and just a brief overview of how we fit into that in the UK.
Well, basically, the Camelot information was a lot of information, a lot of iconology that gets its start in Kemet, Egypt. And Egypt, was there for thousands of years, and it produced not just the standard mythologies of Isis and Osiris and Horus or what have you that you would call Egyptian mythology. They were there, and it was universities, and these were some of the few people on the planet that actually had universities at the time. You see what I'm saying? You look at Greece. People don't understand this about Greece. Their scientist scholar is supposed to be Socrates. Socrates is supposed to be taught by his scholar, Plato, who is a philosopher. Now, wait a minute, now hold on. Goddamn, now hold on now. You couldn't run that shit on any, you could go to Oxford right now, you couldn't run that bullshit on nobody. Let's give you a modern example. You got Bill Gates as a scientist, technological scientist. You understand what I'm saying? But if somebody asked him who was his teacher, if they said Deepak Chopra, how the hell are you going to get computers from spirituality? You see what I'm saying? There's some talk that sometimes talks against that. So Plato was a philosopher. He wasn't a scientist. So how could Socrates get training from a non-scientist? And the key here is both of them went to the damn mystery schools. And like the spirit world told me, no white man never went to the mystery school. So when you talk about Plato and them, you still just talking about another brother and Socrates. You see what I'm saying? You see, so on that level, but my point here was the mystery system was so vast until it produced more than what you call the general mythology and science in the meta level of Isis and Osiris and the Netters and all of this type of thing. They had schools that had different mythologies that could be set around the world. And those things came up out of Egypt. And a lot of that stuff, like I say, so when the Moors came in, they took a lot of that mythology with them and translated it into the mythology of the people's land. Now we know they could do that because they used to do that with writings. What that meant was they could take they said that a lot of the ancient world, they had, I'm still on, you can still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of the ancient world, they had languages, but they didn't have no scripts for the language. You see what I'm saying? So you had a lot of nomadic cultures and stuff like that. There was no way that they could produce an advanced language, an advanced script for a language, and an alphabet and a numerical system. So what they would do is they would go to Egypt, or Kemet, because that was the major university of the world. And they would go to Egypt, and the Egyptian priests would actually just give them a script that can go along with a language. So right now you can have a language. And so if someone gave you a script, and if you can match up the alphabets with the words, into words, you understand what I'm saying? And a script, then you would have a script that could be a language. You could develop that. So let's say if you gave the Hebrew people an Arabic script, and they're speaking Hebrew, the Arabic actual script would just be phonetically, they would fit the language up to the actual alphabets. Because remember, our scripts are nothing but a consortium of alphabets. It's not like it's, words come after letters, and you see what I'm saying. So what they would do is literally they was handing out these scripts around the world, and as a result, the ancient man was able to write down his language. You see what I'm saying? That's how advanced they were. So they were able to take mythologies which was the principles set in Egypt. You see? Different principles. And all of them having the same principles, and you take it all the way back to Isis and Osiris, but they can have a different a storyology, a storyography, if there's a word for that. That they could take these scripts and take them up to people foreign, give them a meaning, because it all comes back down to what is the meaning behind it, what is the moral behind it, what is the science behind it, and then weave their cultural motifs into the actual mythology. See what I'm saying? So that's what happened with the Grail mythology. Primarily it was an Egyptian mythology brought by the Moors, but the thing about it, it had prophecy in it when it talked about a new land and a new world. You got your basic king and the queen and once upon a future king. And the king, you can tell it's Egyptian because the king ends up being divine, mystical, magical. Motifs that were set in Kemet. So you can take these things and weave it into any culture you want to weave it into. And in so many words, that's what you can see with mythology. Mythology, it'd be some of the same stories retold all over the world. Well, that's what happened with the Grail mythology. But a lot of the mythology, all the mythology of the world was talking about a future people. And the future people had to have been a future people who was able enough to be around in the indigenous primordial era, to the point where, as you can see, their fall, rise, and transmutation and transformation into the new area. So you will actually see a primordial people be made a new people. And that is the hero, Heru's journey. He's alchemically changed through time in a series of mutations and transmutations and putrefacients into a new product. See what I'm saying? That's what the Grail mythology is, but it's also prophecy, because what I just explained is exactly what the only people who could have done this had to come through the diaspora. You see what I'm saying? So it had to come through the diaspora. You can omit, you see, other people, because although they could have, you could have some people that's 2,000-3,000 years old. Very likely you're going to have people that's primordial. That's African, for the lack of a better word. And when I mean that, I just mean black people around the world, whether you talk about Aborigines, whether you talk about Olmec, or whether you talk about Central Africa. You see what I'm saying? So the only people who could do this, to make that kind of feat, had to have been the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, and it had to have been what any race traced back to the primordial substance. Then on the other hand, it had to have been a new people. And that's where you get it, baby. Caribbean, African American. In this particular case, the transmutation on one half went to the African Americans, because it was broken down and sifted out, and the culture was completely stripped from them and made a new people. The other transformation, which is the most beautiful part now that we learn, had to have been the British, the Black Britain. Because now not only did you go to the island, you understand what I'm saying? But the island culture contains still a lot of African and indigenous motifs. So from the island culture, there had to have been another one was broken down into the British. In this particular case, it's this generation, which is amazing. See what I'm saying? It's just a few generations away. Then you got to look at this particular part here. You got that African influence that comes in, because this thing here, you got a lot of international motherfuckers, you see, that come in. You go to Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, you damn sure ain't gonna find no Africans. One or two, but not communities. So the African concept had to have been broken down into, amalgamated into this, into two places, well, three places in all. The whole European aspect of Britain and whatever sprinkled around Europe, and also Canada. You see, now I'm not saying that we don't have the African aspect and the Caribbean aspect in America. You understand what I'm saying? But we don't have the type of we don't have the type of history of them elevating into the consciousness as we do you over here. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because they had an earlier influx that goes all the way back to there, and basically what they did is just extended the Caribbean into America. You understand what I'm saying? into America. And they had one major manifestation of vanguard period with Marcus Garvey, which was big. It was huge. Marcus Garvey got chapters every place on the globe. So that is their first manifestation of what you would call, and it is the only successful manifestation of African Americans and Caribbean. It's the only one we had. Because after that, the government went to work. I'm just finding this out. Is that one still on? I'm still on? So, I'm in view?
Yeah.
That is the only one in the 1920s, whereas you had a huge influx and a huge combination of both the Caribbean world and the African American world in the UNIA. And after that, they made sure that when it came to movements, that you would never have that consortium of Africans and indigenous people involved again. So that was broken through COINTELPRO, in that particular case, the FBI, Illuminati, what have you. So the other wave of the Caribbean and the extension now into this vast consciousness now in the Caribbean is coming through Britain and Canada. Canada is rolling hard. You see what I'm saying? So in so many words, that is what the Camelot was that the Moors envisioned when they brought these myths up in here. They envisioned a new land and a new people. You see what I'm saying? So you got to understand the difference between how alchemy goes and why it wasn't a continent thing. It is a continent thing, but the continent being the cradle when we talk about Africa. The cradle can never, you see what I'm saying, be the descendant. The cradle is where it's birthed. It's primordial. So in order to make something primordial, you have to make it anew. You understand what I'm saying? You have to make it new. So therefore it would have to be the diaspora. And what I've tried to do is explain how the diaspora take part in this and stuff, but that is the Camelot. So you got the round table, which you got knights as individual streams of the diaspora. You got, in the middle of the round table is a burning coal. That coal represents Africa. That's the primordial melanin, primordial primal materia, as it's called, the negrito. You see what I'm saying? The nigrum nigrus nigrus. That coal has to be synthesized through the nights with different talents, different abilities, and transmutated into something new. You see, transmutated into something new. One of the best representation of that would be voodoo and Santeria, because both of them not only came about in the Western Hemisphere, but they were able to take various other cultural aspects, you see what I'm saying? You see, and survive through it, house up under it, and actually make a whole new system. You see what I'm saying? It's not to say that the other system is not irrelevant. It's just another expression of the same system. So Africa is expressed through its diaspora. You see what I'm saying? And that is the alchemical aspect of these mysteries of Camelot. We are a new people. You see what I'm saying? It's just that I see a new Caribbean here. You are unlike the other Caribbeans on the islands and the ones even in America after they broke it. See what I'm saying? Although you are Caribbean in origin. Clearly, a nigga from Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina is dialectically distant from an original African. There's no way you can get, see what I'm saying? Two different species, so when they meet again, they are so different until they don't even bother to even hang out with each other. And that is not necessarily sad as it is the way it is. And that, my friend, is the divinity in it. Because if it was the same shit, you see what I'm saying, you know, then wouldn't be no need for us to even leave out of Africa. You see, so one is the mother of it, and it's a connection. Now the whole key here is, the whole concept here is not for the new to separate from the old. The whole concept here is it's no different than Washington, D.C., a parliament. I don't know how the procedure go here, but there you have your state representatives that go to Washington, D.C. and do the work for its district. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Africa. Africa had to go beyond itself. It had done the human thing for thousands and thousands of years, and it was the best human living because it was the prototype of what humanity was. So how do you go beyond perfection? You go beyond perfection, you understand what I'm saying? Through a descent and a disintegration and a destruction. Destruction only makes something new. I take a mountain, if to make something new out of it, I have to break a slab of the mountain off, beat it, crush it down into cement, which is just loose pieces of the mountain, add water to it, and restructure a brand new building out of it. You see what I'm saying? That's what had to happen. So you see, out of Egypt I will call my son. You see. So, in so many words, this is it. This is it. You see, and it happened in a movement outside of the white man's attention. Now this is where Farrakhan and them come in. He was beneficial. First of all, he turned a lot of people on to consciousness. Now whether they went on or whatever. But because he was the person that ended up being the mouthpiece, then they focus on him. Even though it's a monster that they made, they focus on him. And so many words it takes to ease off of us. They have no